Ever feel like there are just too many things going on at once? You know that there's a signal, but you just can't make it out through the noise. Overwhelmed? It looks like you might be trying to secure a modern IT environment. Identifying threats can be a challenge without full visibility and the proper tools. Introducing Trend Micro VisionOne, a purpose-built threat defense platform giving you and your security team the power to see more and respond faster to threats. At the heart of Trend Micro VisionOne are deep and broad XDR capabilities that automatically collect and correlate data across multiple security layers: email, endpoints, servers, cloud workloads, and networks. Instead of presenting you with floods of notifications, Trend Micro VisionOne ties together a series of lower confidence signals surfacing actionable, high-fidelity alerts. Coupled with powerful security analytics based on Trend Micro Research threat intelligence, we provide you with the latest detection rules and indicators of compromise. With Trend Micro VisionOne, your team can quickly understand the true nature and scope of an attack and where to focus their efforts to remediate the breach efficiently. Organizations running XDR experience 50% fewer successful attacks, and their security teams, well, they no longer have to sweat the small stuff. Visibility is paramount to effective security. That's why we designed VisionOne with a single console that gives security teams insight into risk metrics and trends that are most meaningful for them. An intuitive dashboard gives you a holistic view of what's happening in your environment to help you quickly focus your attention where it's needed the most. Discover which endpoints show evidence of attack, view the top risky devices and users, and gain visibility into both approved and unapproved cloud app usage. When something suspicious is detected, you can dive into an attack-centric view of an entire chain of events across all security layers. Quickly assess the scope of impact across servers, endpoints, emails, and network involved in suspicious activity. Review detailed information about files, processes, command lines, URLs, and network activity, and decide on appropriate containment and response actions, all from one intuitive console. It's simple. Trend Micro VisionOne makes your life easier. With XDR-driven insight, you can proactively adjust specific policies to continuously optimize your defenses. And finally, as you probably have other security solutions deployed, Trend Micro offers a growing portfolio of open APIs and integrations into third-party systems like SIEM and SOAR. And if you need it, you can further augment your security team with our managed XDR service available around the clock. Trend Micro VisionOne gives you the visibility and efficiency to make your security teams better than ever, enabling them to do more with less. All of this through a single console. Trend Micro VisionOne, a threat defense platform raising the bar for XDR and beyond.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well to defeat the stress gods, and thank you for joining in for this very interesting and relevant discussion focused on a very relevant buzzword in the cybersecurity community, XDR. You know, with the ever-evolving cyber threat landscape, there was a need to look beyond endpoints. Instead, XDR here to look beyond and address multiple threat vectors. Joining us today for this engagement will be Ankit Guglani, a leading cybersecurity consultant with Trend Micro, who will be sharing his insights on Trend Micro VisionOne XDR platform, as well as Mr. Mohit Guglani, a leading cybersecurity consultant with SISL Techjockey, who will be giving you guys a quick product tour of Trend Micro VisionOne XDR. Please feel free to drop in your questions in the chat box, and we'll be glad to address those at the end of the session. Over to you, Ankit, and thank you all for joining in again.
Thank you, Utkarsh, for a brief and wonderful introduction and in setting the context. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all in joining us today to attend the session on Trend Micro VisionOne, which we are doing with our esteemed partner, SISL. Before we deep dive into the discussions, let me just give you a brief introduction about myself. I'm Ankit Guglani, currently working as a cybersecurity consultant with Trend Micro. From the overall career perspective, I have close to 14 years of experience across various organizations, be it telcos, SIs, digital consulting companies, and vendor organizations in the pre-sales domain. So without much ado, Here is the agenda for the day. We shall be discussing about the technology shift, which is the current and real challenges in the enterprise with respect to the technology. What is XDR, that is the extended detection response, why this technology is important, and how it will benefit an organization. What are the additional value adds which Trend Micro VisionOne brings in over and above the XDR capabilities? This is where I'll take a pause on the theoretical part, and my friend Mohit from SISL will walk you through a small demonstration on the platform itself. Last 15 minutes, we have kept for the Q&A, where both me and Mohit will answer to the questions you have bombarded in the chat window. So let's begin. So if you see, the enterprises today are in the perfect storm. And this is happening because of the digital transformation. And specifically after the pandemic, we have seen a rapid increase and an exponential rise in the digital transformation budgets, in the adoption of cloud services, which is at its all-time high. And we've also seen that the perimeter is diminishing. With all these advancements comes complexity and lack of visibility. This is or can be considered as a blessings in disguise for the hackers, as the attack surfaces are increasing and these guys, bad guys, have more field to play around. Over and above that, hackers are evolving their ways of working, becoming deadlier and evolving day by day. It's the era of double extortion, and we have seen, in fact, the state-sponsored groups collaborating with each other and are gaining knowledge to advance their means, their ways of attack, and modifying their behaviors as well, so that they are not detected by the deployed security technologies in the enterprises. Now, moving ahead, if we look at the security operations challenges from the lens of the security operations teams, these are some of the most common challenges they have. A, siloed visibility. B, alert overload. 3, no meaningful outcome. And the skill shortage. If I go a step back, earlier organizations were more focused towards the protection platforms, and they were investing in best of breed point product tools, which were performing fantastically well in their own space. But the major problem which these organizations were facing was silos of visibility. As these products were not at all talking to each other, there was no integration. And in fact, I did a study a couple of years back on the mapping of the security tools and technologies in a typical organization with the NIST framework. And I realized in multiple large enterprises that a single organization has multiple tools and technologies which are performing to some extent the same, or they are overlapping each other's functionality. And some technologies are completely missing from the customer environment. So it is important, what are the tools and technologies deployed, and what is the efficacy of these tools and technologies? So now, since I was talking about the silos of visibility, because none of the tools are talking to each other, to counter to this problem, SIEM solutions and SOC solutions came into being, where security incident and event management tools acted as a centralized log management solution with the capability to perform correlation based on the specific use cases defined. These solutions, I would say, solved the problem of integration to an extent. But to be frank, the SIEM solutions are reactive in nature, and the efficacy of these solutions is typically dependent on the frequent use case changes and the type of use cases defined and the experience of the security analyst who is defining the use cases. So all said and done, the SIEM solutions were bringing in a lot of alert overload, noise, and too many false positives. And today, it's a known fact that the industry has lack of cybersecurity skills since so many years. It is becoming practically impossible for the security analyst teams who is working 24/7 and looking at the metrics of the screen to identify or find a meaningful true positive alert. Typically now, post the deployment of SOC, the major challenge is how to get faster detections and confident response. And that too with the limited full-time resources, because no organization can spend multiple FTEs just to look at the metrics of the screen. Now, to answer to this problem is extended detection and response platform, which is our Trend Micro VisionOne. And you would have seen almost all the research analyst firms these days are talking about CASB, Zero Trust, user entity behavior analytics, SASE, etc., etc. And if you get all of these functionalities in a single platform with negligible noise and high fidelity alerts, it becomes a cherry on the cake. And which product brings in this cherry on the cake? It's Trend Micro VisionOne. So now the dilemma, which is typically there in a CISO or a security professional, is where to start from. The first is the endpoints. Endpoints have always been the gold mine for the attackers. And typically most attacks involve an endpoint. And this is a simple reason, the organizations with the EDR capabilities thought of evolving to an XDR capability so that they can get some meaningful outcome. They can widen the scope of detection and response. And EDRs were performing fantastically well at the endpoint space, and you are correct, because as I mentioned in the previous slides, attackers are evolving and advancing their techniques. So you should have detection and response capabilities across the other attack vectors, like email. As per the various reports, emails are still the most prevalent attack vector, and more than 90%, and to be frank, it's about 94% of the attacks originate in some shape or form through the email itself, be it business email compromise, phishing, spear phishing, so on and so forth. And then you have the network, where there are a lot of unmanaged legacy devices where either the agents cannot be deployed or somehow the security team has missed. The compliance issues are there that you have not deployed endpoint agents on the endpoint or server workload agents on the servers. So typically, to get the full visibility, integrating network to get the network detection response is the key. And last but not the least are the workloads, be it on-premise or on the cloud. These are the crown jewels, and the business reputation and money is at stake. So it is important that data center and cloud workloads are an integral part of the overall detection response. To summarize this in a single line, endpoint, email, network, and workloads are the four major key building blocks of an XDR platform, which needs to be considered to strengthen the cybersecurity posture of the organization and provide enterprise-wide threat detection and response. So moving ahead, this is where the buck stops. Trend Micro VisionOne, and we call it as an evolving threat defense platform because, to be frank, developments are happening in an agile manner almost every day. We are fine-tuning the product, adding much more functionalities. And to be frank, it sometimes becomes a surprise for us as well that this feature was not there yesterday. Somehow it has come up today, and it is adding a lot of meaningful results to the VisionOne capabilities and in strengthening the overall cybersecurity portion. So here also, if you look, we have zero trust secure access. We have integration with SIM SOAR over the RESTful APIs. And underneath, you would see all these dark blue color boxes are the underlying building blocks and Trend Micro products, because Trend Micro provides the native XDR. And at the endpoint, we have the Apex One solution. At the server and cloud workloads, we have Deep Security or Cloud One workload security solution. At the network level, we have Deep Discovery Inspector. And at the email side, we have Cloud App Security. Sensors within these solutions are configured in a way that they send the telemetry to the VisionOne cloud, where all the data stacking, data crunching, and security analytics happen. And then based on these security analytics, the VisionOne is able to tell us about the advanced threats proliferating in the environment. And then the security analyst and the security experts can perform various investigations and threat hunting and take the response action there and then, so as to have a reduced mean time to detect and mean time to respond to that particular threat. Now you would have also seen the additional boxes, which is the mobile security. This has been added recently, and in near future, we shall also be integrating the telemetry or ingesting the telemetry from the OT and IoT environment to enrich the security analytics of VisionOne and to widen the scope of the enterprise-wide threat detection response. Now, at the right-hand side, like I said, we have API integration with SIM SOAR vendors. XDR, I would say, is not a replacement to the SIM SOAR solutions. Rather, it complements these solutions as on date. Even though there was a recent study by Forrester which says that XDR platforms might replace SIM-SOC solutions down the line, but that is a path which we all will see. It cannot be predicted. But to let you know, we integrate our Trend Micro VisionOne with various SOC platforms to send only the high fidelity alerts so that the SOC analyst can save their bandwidth and can look at the meaningful alerts and doesn't waste time in analyzing the false positives and utilize rather the saved time, saved bandwidth in upskilling them. And the organizations may also think of reducing the strength of SOC teams as the events per second which are being sent across to the SIM solutions as on date are reduced drastically. Trend Micro also offers a growing portfolio of open APIs and integration to third-party systems over and above the SIM-SOC, which can be leveraged by various enterprises to make the platform more intelligent. As we are talking about XDRs, EDRs, and SOC 2, the question that comes up frequently is, Ankit, you are also saying that we complement the SIM-SOC solution, but how exactly is XDR different from SIM or even EDRs for that matter? So let us see with an example here. The type of data going to the SIM, EDR, and XDR. Here is that type, and I have depicted that in the form of a small attack where we see a phishing email came into a user or maybe multiple users, and one of the users opened the email and downloaded the attachment, which was a MS Word file. As soon as the user tried to open the file, a PowerShell command executed at the backend and established a command and control communication with a backend server. And typically, if you look at any SIM solution, that is where the trigger will come and the log will be sent across to the SIM solution that a typical CNC connection has been established. But if you see here, parallelly, the attacker stole the AWS credentials to spin up a container and then tried to move laterally as well. So in this example, the SIM solutions, like I said, is working in a reactive manner, has received the CNC communication and then sent a single alert to the SOC environment. And this single alert may have been missed by the security analyst team because they are looking at thousands and thousands of alerts on the daily, on the hourly, on the secondly basis. And it is an ongoing continual process. So if you talk about the EDR solutions, these solutions collect activity and not just the alerts. With activity, I mean the complete telemetry. What is the endpoint? What is the host name? What is the operating system? Who is the user logged in? What type of activity that particular user is doing and how frequently that particular user is accessing the data, which application the user is on, and in the past, has he opened such a kind of application? So there are multiple telemetry which is sent across to the EDR platform. So, I would say that you get the full visualization that at the endpoint, a Word document was opened, PowerShell got executed as soon as the document got opened. So the EDR will connect these dots to tell you the story. But the only caveat is that EDRs are limited to the endpoints. And in this case, it will still miss the beginning and end of the story, which occurs before and after the endpoint. That is the email and the lateral movement to the containers and spinning up the containers. This is where cross-layer detection and response helps. The extended detection and response collects activity information from not only the endpoints, like I said earlier, but also from the emails, containers, and the network. So it will be able to picturize the full attack lifecycle, and then at the end, send only the higher fidelity alert to the SIM platform. Let us now see how it operates at the backend. So telemetry is sent individually from the EDR or the endpoint protection solutions, from the email security solution, from the network security solution, and the server workload security solution. So what we do is, it is not that you need to deploy a separate isolated agent and an additional agent altogether in the endpoint and the server. It is rather a sensor or a small, I would say a 2.5 MB module, which gets added as a sensor into the existing agents at the endpoint and the server, and at the network side and the email side, it is mere API integration. So no hassle in terms of the deployment of the VisionOne platform. And as soon as the sensors start uploading the telemetry, it gets stored in the XDR data lake, which you see here, which mentions detection and activity logs at cloud storage. And this is where the complete security analytics happens. We run our own mathematical algorithms, do the data stacking, and to get some meaningful detections, which are in turn mapped to the MITRE attack framework. These detections are visible as workbench and also under the observed attack techniques. The platform has its own database. It's not that, if you have multiple, or if you have such a big data lake, it takes time to do the search and to analyze the detections. So the advantage is that we are not storing everything into a full-blown big data lake and then analyzing it. Rather, we are creating small chunks individually for endpoint, email, network, so as to enhance the search time rate. And then we also have the capability to integrate with various other third-party intelligence feeds in the form of sticks and taxis and open IOCs as well, so that we can enrich the platform further and to provide the automatic and manual sweeping based on these IOCs to identify if there are any indicators of compromise which are there in the customer environment. With these IOCs, we can also perform the global attack campaigns, and which basically means that the latest attacks which have been uncovered recently, we do the sweeping based on those global attack campaigns, be it Kaseya, Rayo, so on and so forth, Doppelpaymer, and then identify every 24 hours if there is any mapping of these IOCs within the customer environment. And then the threat experts can take the corrective action there and then. So one of the other key factors is that Trend Micro has its own IOCs and the largest smart protection network, which is a full-blown database of the IOCs, which is any which ways integrated as a part of the product. And the advantage is the IOC management, which Trend Micro VisionOne has, is very exhaustive. It has the capability to not just detect, but also block IOCs based on multiple factors, be it IP, be it URL, be it domain, and the hash value. And none of the other players in the market have such vast options. Now we have also added this red block, which is the Zero Trust Risk Insight and Zero Trust Secure Access. And that is why, in fact, we have rebranded our XDR platform as VisionOne, because we are enhancing, or we are providing a lot more value adds over and above the extended detection response. So what we do with the zero trust risk insight is, since we have the telemetry, since we have a lot of metadata ingested, we can use this, or rather we use this information to create a risk profile and then decide the access based on the risk profile which we have created per endpoint, per end user, and the type of cloud apps being accessed. I'll talk about these in detail in my upcoming slides. Moving ahead, even though Mohit will be covering in detail and walk you through the platform itself, but still I have taken the screenshot to give you a glimpse of how VisionOne visualizes the high fidelity alerts and what all we capture in every incident or in every alert which is generated in the form of workbench. At the left hand side, you would see the summary with the triggered detection model, which in this case is suspicious web access after the suspicious email. Then you would see the impact score, which is calculated based on the detection rule, which stage of attack lifecycle the attack is on, number of attack vectors involved, and the quantity of those. Like here we see 5 endpoints are there, 2 users, and 2 mailboxes are involved. And to perform this suspicious web access after suspicious email, 2 MITRE attack techniques are involved. One is possible spear phishing link, which came in from jesse@vonest.com, which you see at the right hand side. And this email was sent from Jess to sam@vonest.com. And as soon as Sam clicked on the email, a rarely accessed domain, which is the second technique, was utilized, and the access to remotesr.com was established, which seems to be spurious. To dig down further in our investigation, we can check the network analytics as well, which is you see on the screen right now. This network analytics will give you the complete traffic flow in the form of a small visual play, which you can click on this play button, which you see here, and it will show you what type of activities and what is the progression rate and how typically individual events are happening. So here also you would see, once Sam established connection with remote SR, parallelly, Sam established an SMB connection with other computers in the LAN and then did the lateral movement. The full summary and the severity can be seen above as well. That what are the malicious files were transferring from, suspicious files were seen on. And the other advantage is that the security analyst, obviously, even though they are in the security field, they are aware about MITRE attack framework, they are aware about typical tactics and techniques. But now there are about 14 tactics and there are 100+ techniques. And if the security analysts are not aware that what this technique is all about, you can click on the MITRE attack techniques, which you see here, and it will take you to the MITRE attack website, and the security analyst or the investigator or the expert can look at the definition of what this tactic and what this technique is all about, how the attackers are behaving in this, what type of activities are being carried out, so that it helps them in the investigations. Moving ahead. So in the previous slide, we saw the workbenches which got triggered based on the various tactics and techniques. What we also do is mapping of multiple workbenches together. So there would be n number of workbenches that gets created. But over and above that, the automation which we do on the workbench itself is that we combine these workbenches to give you a detailed, meaningful analysis of the incident, which might be the chances of true positive increases here. And this also helps in the incident prioritization. That is, where should the security investigator should spend time first. So you can consider this to be similar to the golden hour process, which the security analyst team typically uses once they identify a threat. And this is how they can help to prioritize their incident. And they can probably, in this case, act on the first 2 incidents first, because this is typically showing a score of 100. And now, there can be multiple permutation and combinations, like similar alert triggered on multiple devices at the same time, or probably multiple alerts at different times on the same device. Hence, this incident view does all of this in an automated fashion. And you can see here, associated alerts 93, associated alerts 11. So it is mapping those alerts to the specific incidents and also letting you know the number of users, number of endpoints, number of servers, and the emails, which is equated to all these underlying workbench and the typical incident which got created. The next important aspect is the attack techniques. So workbench does give you a great visualization, but to perform the detailed investigation, you would need to identify how the attack got executed and what all were involved during this attack technique. Secondly, I would also like to tell you, workbenches are typically created based on the detection models, which our backend teams are updating almost on the daily basis. But observed attack technique is a full-blown database of all the attacks and all the techniques which have been utilized. And you can drill down to identify what are the commands executed, how it got executed, what are the objects involved, registries involved, processes involved, so on and so forth. And all of this granularity can be checked, and accordingly, either from the workbench page or from the observed attack technique page, you can take the response action, what to do, whether to isolate the endpoint or to delete the email, quarantine the email, collect the file, so on and so forth. And also, like the way it is shown here, you would also see the tactics and techniques utilized in this particular observed attack techniques page. Moving ahead, so specifically from the dashboarding perspective and from the CISO standpoint, they probably are more interested in strengthening the overall cybersecurity posture. And hence, in this security dashboard, we give you a view of various TTPs, which I mean tactics, techniques, and procedures, and also the sub-techniques utilized by the attacker in the customer environment in the last 30 days, 7 days, 15 days, depending on the configuration. And accordingly, the team can analyze and increase the efficacy of the security tools and technologies as well by either fine-tuning them or deploying a new technique altogether, so that the specific tactic or technique which are utilized in customer environment can be avoided, or the chances of the attacker utilizing these techniques can be minimized. So this is now the search app. In our security analytics database, like I mentioned earlier, there is a separate data lake instance, each for all the attack vectors. So here you will see general, you will see the endpoint activity data, message activity data, network activity data, and the detections which we have seen till now. And then you can customize your search and combine these various criterias, like the way you see here, object CMD /bin/sh, and tags this particular technique which got utilized by MITRE. And then it can be multiple other combinations, permutations of the search criteria, which can give you the relevant results in the search app. And it doesn't take that much of a time, because we are taking those measures that the efficiency of giving you the search results is up to the mark. And another important aspect is, like I mentioned earlier, in the workbench and in the OAT, you can take the response actions. Similarly, you can take the response actions from the search app screen as well. So you don't have to toggle between the screens. It can be done either from workbench, either from OAT, or from the search app, depending on when the security analyst confirms that, yes, this is a true positive. Moving ahead, it is important that you take the response action faster and with more confidence. So I would say, if you see the response actions in our platform are pretty adaptive. They are pretty interactive. And the adaptability of these response actions and the granularity of these response actions is a must. Depending on the type of action to be taken. So right in the screen here, you see at the left-hand side, it's isolate endpoint because an endpoint is involved. At the right-hand side, you would see quarantine email or delete email, because it got initialized through an email. So at a holistic level, at the center, you would see contextual aware choices of quick response. And we do collect file, isolate endpoint, block file hash, domain IP, terminate process, take remote shell. In fact, also add or run custom scripts, collect PCAP, so on and so forth. So it's pretty exhaustive, pretty granular, so that you can take relevant response actions. You don't block something which should not be blocked. So till now, we talked about the detection and response. The other value additions which Trend Micro offers over and above the XDR functionality is the threat intelligence, zero trust risk insights, and zero trust secure access, and the integration, which is very important because, like the way I said in my first slide, none of the solutions work in silos. So all of these blue highlighted topics I'll talk about. The first one is the threat intelligence app, where we provide three options. Number one is the proactive sweeping against the global campaigns. So it is important to identify the traces of attacks which have been identified globally and are new. So we sweep a customer's environment on daily basis to see this. Say, for example, like I said earlier, be it Ryuk, Doppelpaymer, Kaseya, all of these global attack campaigns, we sweep your environment to identify if there is any malicious activity, any indicator of compromise there in your environment, and it will be alerted there and then. Second is the custom IOCs and the curated IOCs. So even though we have our own threat intelligence feeds integrated into the platform, but we also give you the option that you can integrate third-party threat intelligence feeds. And we've also seen that some of the organizations have the compliance requirement that they should integrate multiple threat intel feeds from multiple sources to meet the compliance. So you get that option in the form of open IOCs, in the form of sticks and taxi. And with the addition of these feeds, the VisionOne will sweep your environment, check similar to the proactive sweep. It will check whether there is any anomaly, there is any IOC matching within your environment. And then in the similar fashion, you can take the corrective action. And the other important factor here is the suspicious object management as well. So I would say that if I have to give an example here, from the BFSI vertical, we have seen that banks typically send various IOCs to the fintech organizations also, wherein they share IOCs in the form of CSVs. What we do is you can upload the CSV and then block the IOCs based on IP, URL, domain, hash value. So it is all done in an automated fashion, and you don't have to manually upload single IOC. It is done through the CSV, and it saves a lot of time. And specifically for the indicators of compromise, since the shelf life is pretty low, it is important that you do it at the right time so that you are able to detect what is proliferating in your environment. Now, the last thing is threat intelligence sharing. So what we also do is, since there are a few names mentioned here, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and Fortinet, I'll probably talk about these only. What we do is we do the bidirectional threat intelligence sharing with these platforms, wherein we send IOCs to the network firewalls or the perimeter devices, so that you don't have to bring in the indicators of compromise or the attack vectors till your endpoint, till your servers. It can be done at the perimeter, so as to strengthen your environment in a much better way. Yeah. And then this early warning indicators is nothing but you can consider this as a part of the global attack campaigns. Moving ahead, one of the crucial and talked about methodology these days is zero trust. That is, trust no one, and verify everyone. Before I dig deeper into this, I would like to stress on the aspect of zero trust. And I'm sure you all would be aware, because everybody these days is talking about zero trust. Either they are in the deployment journey or they are in the journey of identifying which is the right player who can implement the zero trust strategy or can strengthen their environment by bringing in the zero trust principle. Because each and every organization has its own way to have the zero trust strategy or to deploy the zero trust framework within your organization. And I would say zero trust is not a technology or a product, rather it's an approach or a philosophy which organizations are adopting. And this has increased drastically post the pandemic as well. The way we ensure zero trust is by continuously accessing, sorry, I got a call. Yeah. By continuously assessing your environment to gain risk visibility. And then based on this visibility which we have gathered, intelligent decisions can be taken to strengthen the cybersecurity posture and then grant the zero trust access. So what you see typically here is we are granting, what we are doing is we are ingesting the telemetry, we are taking a lot of inputs from the sensors, then individually at the endpoint, end user, and multiple other factors, we are giving the risk visibility. And then based on that particular visibility, we are enforcing the secure access rules so that this SASE framework is onboarded and your overall environment is using the zero trust methodology and is strengthening your cybersecurity posture. Now, you would say, what are these assessing factors? So the assessing is done on multiple factors, which are users, devices, and applications. And rather, the multiple factors which we consider for these identities are context and risk. The first and foremost thing which we do is device posture. That is, how is the posture of your device, whether the anti-malware solution is updated or not, whether the operating system is updated or not, what type of vulnerabilities are there in your endpoints or the servers, and also the version of browser being used, because there are a lot of browser exploits available in the market. So it is important that your browser version is also checked. Secondly, we see the identity activity. That is, what is the geolocation of user? Probably today the user is logging in from India and suddenly a attempt is there from, say, Europe or from China. We are able to detect that and then give the risk score accordingly. The next is the data access. So what type of data is being accessed by the endpoint? If the confidential data is accessed frequently, this factor is also considered as one of the crucial factors. And then last but not the least is what type of threats have been identified from that particular endpoint or the server or the end user. All of this information gets collated together, and then we run our own mathematical algorithm to give a single risk score. And this risk score at a macro level is provided to the organization, and at a micro level we give it per end user and per endpoint. And to enhance the posture further, we also map this particular organization-wide score to the organizations from other verticals so that you can compare where you stand and then what actions you need to take so that you can probably strengthen your posture much more. And then now, once we have the risk score, we can take intelligent actions and decisions and enforce the actions in an automated fashion. So say if we say have to block the access of the corporate applications once the risk score of a particular endpoint goes beyond 70. So we can customize these secure access rules so that as soon as the risk score goes beyond 70, based on all of these permutation and combination, which I talked about from the context and risk perspective, we get that score, we analyze the risk score, we give the risk score, and then the rules or the configurations which we have done based on individual risk score, those policies would be deployed, those enforcement actions would be taken in an automated fashion. And once the risk score reduces, Once the security team has identified or done the security awareness of that particular endpoint, enhanced or checked the malicious activities within the endpoint, once the risk score is reduced, we then enable the secure access so that the user can probably access corporate applications, which I just quoted in my previous example. So we talked about these factors which we consider for assessing the risks, but what are the data sources through which we assign the score? This comes not only from the sensors deployed by Trend Micro, which is web, email, network, and endpoints, but we also fetch the information from third parties, and some of which are highlighted here, which is Azure AD, Okta, Palo Alto, etc., etc. Now, this list is not holistic, but I've just shown a few logos to give you the perspective as to how granular we go in terms of the zero trust risk assessment. And so since Azure AD and Okta is mentioned here, this helps us in giving the identity activity so that we can analyze how the user is trying to log in, whether it's a brute force attack happening from multiple locations, whether it's a DOS attack happening from multiple locations. So based on these identity activity, we can analyze the risk score and then take the enforcement actions. So this is all about the zero trust risk assessment. Now, once we have got the insight of the risk score, like I said earlier, taking the enforcement action is pretty important based on that particular risk score. So till the time you are doing something tangible out of it, it's of no use. This is where the secure access service edge or the SASE comes into the picture, which combines these elements together to enforce access based on the policy and risk insights, even though I covered that in the previous slide, but just to stress here, I added this slide so that you are aware that the secure access policies are enforced based on the risk insight score. And in an organization, the workforce is distributed, and then there can be managed devices which are in LAN, out of the LAN, and there are certain unmanaged devices which can either be guests or where somehow the endpoints are not installed with the agents, or the agents, anti-malware agents, are not updated. Based on the endpoint and the end user risk score, the endpoint agent can enforce the actions to block access to corporate or SaaS applications. For your resources, CASB provides API integration to SaaS applications. ZTNA provides a termination point for these corporate applications. And the middle part, which you see here, which is highlighted in red, the network enforcement points are also available at the proxy, firewall, and the IPS level. All of this which you see on the slide, there is a mention of sanctioned and unsanctioned applications as well. With the shadow IT coming into the picture, with the advancement, with the adoption of cloud, the IT team and security teams are worried about the various sanctioned and unsanctioned applications being used in an enterprise. And they are not even aware what SaaS applications the users are accessing. And hence, one of the crucial factors which we consider while evaluating the zero trust risk insight also is the utilization of these SaaS applications. What type of applications or the websites are being accessed by the end users, and what is the risk score individually of these applications. And we give the risk score individually to these applications based on the compliances which these applications hold. Say, for example, whether the XYZ application is having the data in motion encrypted or not, whether the application is complying to ISO 27001 standards or not, so on and so forth. There are a number of other factors which we consider while giving the risk score. And now you can also do is, you can define that these are the sanctioned applications by the IT and the security teams, and these are the unsanctioned applications. Once you define that, yes, you get the visibility that these are the applications being utilized or being used by my end users, you can configure those to be sanctioned and unsanctioned, and then take enforcement actions on those unsanctioned applications, depending on what all you want to do with these unsanctioned applications. So this is the snippet of the console, which shows the number of users, devices, IP addresses, applications, critical vulnerabilities, and the organization wide risk score as well, which is pretty high in this case, that is 82. And then you can identify why this risk score is at 82 level. Moving ahead, we get the user wise view as well. So in the previous slide, I saw the organization wide risk score. We can drill it down to the user wise, that is at the micro level, which I mentioned earlier. Here you see the host name of the desktop, last location, which operating system is being used, when was he last seen, the risk score history in last 7 days, that is how he has been performing, whether the risk score has been continuously high or it was gradually increasing and then decreasing, the associated risk with this user, which you can see highlighted in red here, which are potentially leaked account, compromised device, so on and so forth. We also see the vulnerabilities in the endpoint, associated CVE-ID and the CVSS score. And now I would say the other value add which Trend Micro VisionOne provides is that we don't rely on the CVSS score. We have seen that it might be possible that a CVSS score of probably more than 8 is not critical, and hence the vulnerability prioritization comes into the picture, wherein what we do is we identify the global exploit activity of that particular vulnerability, and then we give you the recommendations on the vulnerability prioritization, that probably you need to look at a vulnerability or an exploit which has a CVSS score of say 6, and you can probably down the line act on the vulnerability which has a CVSS score of 8, because that is not being exploited widely across the globe. Now then, we also give the vulnerability recommendations, that what are the relevant recommendations which you need to do to remove that particular vulnerability. And since all of you would be aware that one of the unique USP of Trend Micro is the virtual patching, where we define the virtual patch rules so that any known and unknown vulnerability which are there in an environment is not exploited, and we define the virtual patch rule at the agent level, and all the remotely exploitable vulnerabilities, you get the complete protection. And the way we do it is through our zero-day initiative program. If you have not heard about it, I would not get into the details of it in this session, but you can have a look at the zero-day initiative website, which will give you the complete visibility of what we do in zero-day initiative. But just to let you know, Trend Micro as an organization alone identifies maximum number of vulnerabilities across the globe. And if I have to give you the statistics, in the year 2020, we alone identified 60% of the global vulnerabilities. And that is the power of Trend Micro. If we are able to identify those 60% of the vulnerabilities, we are deploying a virtual patch right at day one to all such remotely exploitable vulnerabilities, so that our customers are safe and those vulnerabilities are not exploited. And even if you see, each organization has its own mechanism of patch management. Either they follow N-1. If they don't follow N-1, then they would have their own mechanism or change board mechanism to deploy the patch. First, they'll test it in the UAT environment, because nobody wants to play with the live wire or the production environment. So that is where virtual patching comes into the picture, and we provide that complete visibility of the virtual patch, what all rules of virtual patch needs to be deployed if they are not deployed, right here on this screen of Zero Trust Risk Insight. Second, it's the device activity. So at the right hand side, you would see the location wise login attempts, and this is the reason it mentioned leaked account above, as the user login have been done from multiple geographies across the globe, which you see in the red highlighted circles. You see it in India, not in India, sorry, you see it in New York, somewhere in Europe, and somewhere in the eastern side of the world. And so this seems to be a malicious activity, and hence it has highlighted it, and hence it has shown above that it's a potentially leaked account. So you can probably isolate this end user, isolate the endpoint the user is doing, ask the user to change the passwords immediately, so on and so forth. So once the security investigation is performed, the analyst can perform the possible mitigation. That is, isolate the endpoint, like I mentioned for the user before, block user in consecutive high risk levels, block access from all corporate applications, block access, say, from Google Drive or shared folders, so that the confidential information is not leaked or encrypted, and then someone is trying to do double extortion by encrypting the file and then asking for bitcoins, so on and so forth. So the secure access dashboard shows which user matches the maximum rules, what are the rule types involved, whether it's a risk rule or the access rule or the permission control rule which got triggered, so on and so forth. And now we believe as an organization that Zero Trust and XDR works together. It slows down the attacker, makes them visible, and in turn makes their life or makes them difficult to perform a successful attack. And for risk assessment, the threat detection is the most crucial aspect. And that is why we have married both these together, that is the Zero Trust and the XDR, to give our customers the extended detection and response capabilities with the flavor or with the value adds from the Zero Trust secure access and the Zero Trust risk insights. Then, like I said earlier, automation and integration is of prime importance. So automated threat hunting, automated IOC management, automated sweeping, all of this looks fantastic. But what about the other factors which are involved? Because a standalone solution in itself will not add that much of value, howsoever good the platform is. It cannot function alone in silos. And hence we have open APIs through which we integrate out of the box with multiple tools and technologies. And since we have exposed our open APIs, multiple products can be integrated to give an added advantage to all our customers. So if I talk about the SIM vendors, we have ready connectors for QRadar, Splunk, ArcSight, and if the customer is using some other third party, our customers have integrated with multiple other SIM-SOC solutions as well, be it NIF or XYZ. And then we have integration with the SOAR platforms as well. Demisto is one example which I've quoted here. We share threat intelligence with Cyber. We have integrations with network security providers, like I said earlier, for threat intel sharing, be it Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Fortinet. We have integrations with identity providers, IDAM providers like Azure AD, Okta. And then one of the crucial factors is we do integrate with the ticketing platform so that automated ticketing can be done, be it ServiceNow or any other platform, and with the messaging platforms as well, because the tools like Teams, Slack are becoming very much prevalent these days. And in fact, the service desk is also operating with these messaging platforms. And hence we integrate with such platforms as well. And the overall objective of this is to have the complete incident response mechanism and reduce the mean time to detect and respond to the individual threats which are coming in the customer environment. So this is all about the platform capabilities. Let me summarize this discussion with the key takeaways and benefits of VisionOne. I'll not go step by step into all the points, but the first one is alert fatigue. The second one is skill shortage. As I would say, typically in a SOC environment, we have L1, L2, and L3 teams. And with the onboarding of SOAR platforms, the organizations are saying we'll get rid of the L1, but that is not happening because that is the nirvana state once you get the full automation. But the advantage of XDR is you don't have to have a full-blown 24/7 L1 monitoring team. You can upskill your L1 or give them the L2 work, L3 work, and the advantage is they can work in tandem. We have the capability of adding notes to individual workbench, to individual incident, to individual alert which gets triggered in the VisionOne platform, so that the team can work collectively, like the way organizations are adopting the swarming model. This is to some extent similar to that, where the team can work together, and the prime objective is to reduce the time to detect the attack, and then the last point, which is response, to reduce the time to respond to those particular threats. And the first point I'll come back again, which is alert fatigue. The advantage is we are not relying on thousands and millions of alerts which gets triggered. We are only relying on high fidelity alerts which are coming into the VisionOne platform, because the platform itself has that intelligence that it reduces the false positives to a great extent. In fact, if you look at one of the ESG research, they claim that organizations who have deployed XDRs have 60% less chances of repropagation of the similar attack, and the mean time to detect has increased more than 2.2 times. So this is the power of the VisionOne. And for all of those who are worried about the data sovereignty and data localization issues, let me reveal the most important factor which organization considers for evaluation. Trend Micro VisionOne is the platform, is the SaaS platform, which is hosted in the India data centers as well. So you should be completely okay with the data localization, because we are in India. All the metadata, all the telemetry which we are ingesting, if your compliance says that it should be in India, we are pretty compliant to that. And all of the other compliance, be it ISO, SOC 1 Type 2, etc., we meet all of those compliances. And to bring in some more confidence, I would like to tell you that Trend Micro as an organization is a leader in all the 4 key XDR building blocks, be it email, be it endpoint, be it cloud, and be it the detection response. And in fact, from the cloud perspective, we have the largest market share across the globe, that is at about 29.6%. And if you see at this slide, this is one of the recent survey, or one of the recent Magic Quadrant released by Forrester on to the XDR capabilities, XDR platforms. And this was released in October 2021, where you see clearly Trend Micro is leading the chart along with Microsoft, and these are the only 2 leaders. And Trend Micro has the power of native XDR, and we are evolving day by day. So you can trust on Trend Micro for providing you with that added benefits, added value in terms of extended detection and response. This is where I'll take a pause and end my presentation. I would request Mohit from SISL to take over and give you a walkthrough of the VisionOne console. Thank you for being so patient and listening to my presentation. I'll connect back with you again during the Q&A session, and that will be held at the end of Mohit's session. Over to you, Mohit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ankit, for such a detailed presentation. I now request Mohit to come on board and start his quick product tour, so that we have a more detailed insight and access to the entire Trend Micro VisionOne XDR platform. Over to you, Mohit. Thank you.
Thanks, Utkarsh, for the introduction. Also, thanks, Ankit, for such a detailed presentation on the VisionOne. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohit. I work with SISL Techjockey as a cybersecurity specialist. I help customers to evaluate and deploy best-of-the-breed cybersecurity technologies. Today, I will be taking you through the Trend Micro XDR VisionOne platform. So, as my friend Ankit mentioned in the presentation, XDR is the extended version of EDR, where the telemetry will be collected from the multiple other vectors like your server, your network, your email. So as we are talking, these telemetry will be collected from the multiple other vector to give you the high fidelity alert that will help you to lower down the mean time to detect and respond to those alerts. So as we are saying as we are talking about the multiple other vector, we need to make sure those all other vector are well connected with the VisionOne platform. This can be viewed under the administration tab in the product connector. Here you can find out what all solutions security, there is a DDI solution from the Trend Micro. Here you can find out each and every solution that is being connected
Hi guys, Ankit here. So it seems there is some connectivity issue with Utkarsh and Mohit. Let me just call them to check.
Yeah, we're back in live. I'm so sorry. There was some technical error over here.
No worries.
Also, thanks Ankit for such a detailed presentation on the VisionOne. Hello everyone, my name is Mohit. I work with SSL Techjockey as a cybersecurity specialist. I help customers to evaluate and deploy best of the breed cybersecurity technologies. Today, I will be taking you through the Trend Micro XDR VisionOne platform. So as my friend Ankit mentioned in the presentation, XDR is the extended version of EDR, where the telemetry will be collected from the multiple other vectors like your server, your network, your email. So as we are talking, these telemetry will be collected from the multiple other vector to give you the high fidelity alert that will help you to lower down the mean time to detect and respond to those alerts. So as we are saying as we are talking about the multiple other vector, we need to make sure those all other vector are well connected with the VisionOne platform. This can be viewed under the administration tab in the product connector. Here you can find out what all solutions from the Trend Micro are well connected with the VisionOne, like email security solution, that is a cache solution from Trend Micro, your endpoint security solution, that is your Apex one, your server security, that is a cloud one, your network security, that is a DDI solution from the Trend Micro. Here you can find out each and every solution that is being connected or not connected with the VisionOne platform. If it is not connected, you can just click on the Connect tab and connect API integration. Once we make sure that these all products are connected with the Trend Micro VisionOne platform, this all thing can be viewed under the Inventory Management tab. Here, under the Endpoint Inventory tab, you can find out on which all endpoint or server your agent is deployed, and it is able to send the telemetry data to the VisionOne platform. Here you can find total number of endpoint or server workload on which the sensor is deployed, whether the XDR feature or the EDR feature is XDR feature is enabled or not. If it is not enabled and not working as expected, that you can view under the action required tab, and you can take the further action and troubleshoot the same. So as we identify that agents are deployed and functioning as per the expectation, from the configuration point of view, so once these all sensors start sending data to Trend Micro VisionOne platform, from the configuration point of view, the data analytics will perform the data stacking, crunching, correlation as per the MITRE ATT&CK framework rules set that is already defined under the XDR detection model management. So these are the rules that are predefined by Trend Micro to have the detection capabilities. So these rules are modified, or re-engineered, or changed on the daily basis, not on the daily basis, but on a frequent basis with by the Trend Micro expert only. So basis on these detection model management, your alerts are detected and are reflected under the workbench tab. So when I go and click on the workbench tab, here you can see all those high fidelity alerts that we have talked about in the presentation as well. So if I go and further triage under one of the workbench, here you will get the entire information about the alert that is being formed under the workbench. Right from the top, when if we talk about the scoring that is being given on the basis of the impact, the number of devices or the number of email boxes, number of users that is being impacted by this particular alert, on basis on which this score is formed. You can see the incident detail when this particular incident is created, and then the tools and technique that is being used under this particular incident mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. You can get the further information like the your process involved, your services involved, your object. If you want to further deep dive into the tools and technique, you can always click on the this blue link, and it will redirect you to the MITRE ATT&CK framework website, and you can learn more about that. So here you can see a graphical view of that particular thing. If I go and right click on that and click on the check execution profile, I will make it enlarge for you. I will enlarge it for you, sorry. So here you can see the entire process flow of this particular thread. It is enters from your Explorer or the Firefox that we have used. Then one agent is downloaded. Then further your CMDs are populated. Then some EXEs are run, and further your dump has your process dump has been taken. If you want, you can just right click on here. You can right click on here and block those processes or isolate the endpoint. You can take a further preventive action on top of that, or the response action on top of that. You can see each and everything is mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is available for each and every vendor out there. So under Workbench, you will only see the high fidelity alert. So if you go to the object attack techniques, you can see all the incident that is being captured by the Trend Micro VisionOne platform. If I go and select last 30 days, so here you can find out all the alert that been all the event or alert or the incident that is being captured by the Trend Micro VisionOne platform, and it is mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So here you can find out the number of objects associated, the tactics or the technique that is being used, your source, destination, port, tags, object ID, command line, and everything. And if you are having a skill shortage from a resource perspective, you can always offshore these all services to the Trend Micro Expert as a managed XDR offering. If I go onto the search tab, here you will find out the entire information that is being collected within your network. You can always go and do a deep dive search and find out, let's say, if we have detected an source file or hash file in some of the endpoint, and you need to find out whether that endpoint hash file exists in other systems or not. You can just go here, you can type out the hash value or something, your files are value always, and you can just mention it over here. It will do a search for you and give you the result. And if I have to find out, just give me a second, endpoint name, and then your, let's say, Mohit. And if I click on search, it is taking some time to load. Okay, loaded. So here you will find out all the entire incident or the date, when we say telemetry data that is being collected by my endpoint. When I'm saying my endpoint, the sensor is deployed on my laptop. So here you can find out all the information about it. Your object ID, source, host name, endpoint, GUID, destination, and every data. So you can do a deep dive forensic from this particular search tab on each and every endpoint or the data that is being connected with the VisionOne platform. So if I go and talk about the zero trust risk insight. So under zero trust risk insight, you will get the scoring system for your organization. When I say scoring system, it is based on your vulnerabilities detected in your network, your account compromises, anomaly detection, your XDR detection. So based on this, it will form a score for your particular organization and give it to you. So here you can find out more about that. Your high risk user, the vulnerability is detected. It can act as a mini vulnerability assessment only for your endpoint. So if I see Nikhil OS vulnerability is found, if I click on it, you can see the vulnerability detected over here. You can see what is the severity level, the CVE publish, how it can be patched, remediation action, and you can do a patching work on it. You can further make access rule or isolate the endpoint to lower down the risk. And then you can always isolate the endpoint. You can isolate the endpoint to lower down the risk, assign the secure access rule. When I say secure access rule, you can make sure that this device, until and unless patch, will not be able to access any of your corporate application. So these all things we will find under your zero trust risk insight. It will give you score based on the peer comparison as well. On peer comparison, you can see a regional average of 33. So that is where your risk insight will help you. So before moving to the security dashboard, I would like to talk about this zero trust secure access. As my friend Ankit also mentioned in the presentation, okay, zero trust will nowadays everyone is talking about the zero trust, right? So what do we mean by that? When we are saying zero trust, we are making sure the right device connected to your network. When we are saying right device, it should be low on vulnerabilities, should not have any detection or something like that. So for that, we will deploy a connector at your premises. And then when our endpoint will come over here, I can define the secure access rule, your private access rule, your internet rule, your risk control rules. So based on that, I will provide the access to the endpoint to connect to your application or to your hosted application in your network. At last, I will talk about the security dashboard. So security dashboard will give you a 90,000 feet overview of your organization. So here you can find out your top 10 risky user, top 10 cloud app that is being used in your network, top 10 risky devices, your cloud app categories, your cloud app categories, your top endpoint with detection, who are the user that is being targeted the most. So if I go, this MITRE ATT&CK matrix mapping will help a SOC expert or a CISO from a higher perspective. How I will tell you, just give me a second. Last 30 days, okay, selected. The data is getting populated. It's taking some time, just allow me that. Okay, so I think it is taking some time due to slow internet or something. So how it will help you? Let me, yeah, populated, good, great. So here you can see where are you the most number of detection. This you can see under the initial access, the number of detection are 139. Under the later movement tab, you can see a number of detection are 717. That is a pretty high number. So what, as a CISO or a SOC analyst or a SOC manager, you can identify your core area to work. You need to work on the initial access area from a security point of view. Or if the alert or if the malware is coming in your network, it will easily populate. You can see that there are high number of later movement activities. So that is the area of concern for you. And as a CISO or a SOC manager, you need to work on that area. So that is where this MITRE ATT&CK mapping will play a major role in defining your cybersecurity strategy going forward. Then your risky apps that is being used in your network, whether they are sanctioned application or not. So this is all about your security dashboard. So at last, before concluding, I would say it's a great platform that a person that one can evaluate. It will help you to get only the relevant alert that are the high fidelity alert, and that will help you to reduce the mean time to detect and respond to those alerts. You will get a great zero trust risk insight for your organization and comparing it to the peers. It can also act as a mini vulnerability assessment tool for your endpoint devices. So that's all from my side. Over to you, Utkarsh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohit, for that excellent product tour. So Ankit and Mohit, we have a couple of questions from our audiences that I quickly wanted your opinion on. So the first question I would request if Ankit could take up, which is, how is Trend Micro XDR better and why?
Yeah, Utkarsh, so it's a great question. So in terms of benefits of XDR, so you remember the slide which I had showcased, which talked about the alert fatigue, skill shortage and stuff. I'll not go into those aspects. But in terms of the overall product capabilities, I would say since XDR, our VisionOne is a native XDR. With native XDR means that all the underlying key building blocks, be it endpoint, be it cloud workloads, be it server workloads, be it network, and be it email, we have our own Trend Micro solution for all of these key building blocks, and we are able to ingest the telemetry from our own product. So we can upload the maximum telemetry, the relevant telemetry, and in terms of the response actions also, we can perform the granular response action because underlying products are also native to Trend Micro. Over and above that, we are not just limiting ourselves to the extended detection and response capabilities. Like the way I said in my slide, it is an evolving threat defense platform. We are evolving day by day, and we have strengthened our XDR with the zero trust risk insight and zero trust enforcement actions in terms of the zero trust network access and SASE framework. So that is why we are beneficial.
Very nicely summarized, Ankit. Thank you so much for that quick and on-point answer. Mohit, my next question to you is, can I replace my CM if I onboard VisionOne?
Okay, just to answer that, it's not a replacement of SIM solution. Okay, because XDR work only with the Trend Micro product. Whereas when we talk about the SIEM solution, we integrate multiple point product with the SIEM. So we cannot replace the SIM with the XDR, but the core motto is same for the both. To get the high fidelity alert with the mean time to detect and respond. But XDR only work for the Trend Micro product, while SIM work with the other products as well.
So just to elaborate on that answer. So yeah, so Mohit rightly explained the differences, but I would like to stress that we complement the SIM solution. So you would have deployed SIM solutions in your environment. The sir who asked this question. So you would have procured the licenses of a SIM solution, probably of 10,000 APS, 15,000 APS, depending on the size of your organization and depending on the tools and technologies deployed within your organization. So now with the advent of deploying an XDR platform like VisionOne, probably your events per second will get reduced because we are only sending the higher fidelity alerts. And like the way I showcased in my presentation, we are not just relying on the logs and the events which are generating. We are taking actions on the telemetry. So it is not a reactive approach like the way SIMs provide. It is more of a proactive solution where we are performing threat hunting and then taking corrective action on top of the telemetry which we have captured. So it is, I would say, complementing the SIM solution as of now. But in near future, if you read the latest Forrester report, they claim that probably down the line, next 5 years or so, XDRs might replace the SIM solutions, looking at the way the advancements are happening in the XDR platforms.
Got it. Understood. Now for the last question, we have one by Mr. Atish Kumar, who asks who says, please suggest if we have any article referring to blocking of unsanctioned application from VisionOne console.
Yeah, so let me just check if we have any article, because this is the recent development we have had in our VisionOne platform. And for this, we would need to integrate with the Trend Micro web security solution so that we can enforce the actions. It is still in the beta phase testing and will be in the preview mode probably in January. As soon as I find any article, I'll share it with you, Atish.
Wonderful. Again, so with this, we would like to call the curtains on this very interesting session. I would like to thank the audience for being so patient and being so curious, rather, I would say, in context of the questions that have been asked. And we will be sharing this content again with you, with all the attendees. And if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to reach us out on hello@techjockey.com. I will be dropping that email ID in the chat box for everyone's reference in case they want to. And then we can get in touch again, all over again. Yeah. So with this, I would like to thank everyone and have an excellent weekend, and hope you all stay safe with the coming everything that's happening so far. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.